getting ready for this Mass yesterday. I never really paid so much attention to that opening prayer. What a great prayer it would be just to say every day to make our way of life. May everything we do begin with your inspiration, continue with your help, and reach perfection under your guidance. Gosh, what a great prayer. May everything we do begin with the inspiration of God, continue with His help, and reach perfection under His guidance. And you know, as I listened to the readings, in fact, that first reading from Deuteronomy, you probably saying to yourself, that sort of sounds familiar. If you were at Mass last Sunday, it was from Deuteronomy. And it was really this part, except this is more embellished. I mean, God sets before us life and prosperity, death and doom. And He says, if you choose the wrong ways, you're going to die. I mean, He doesn't, I give you everything, and it's like God's going to punish us. But if we make the wrong choices, we're going to die. I mean, not because He wants us to, but because of the choices we make. And He says, you got to forget yourself. And I was thinking about this, and because He says, you got to keep the commandments. That's what He says. You got to keep the commandments, and you'll have life. And you know, that is really hard because we want to be understanding with people who break them. And we want to figure out ways to make it easier for them. You know, we don't want people to suffer. But God doesn't want people to suffer either. And yet He says you got to keep them. And you know, we begin to see what happens once we make ourselves or put ourselves in the position of being God and compassionate and understanding and figure out the nuances in words so that people can continue doing what they... That's not our intention that they continue doing these things, but that's what happens when we use a word like fetus, and hopefully nobody will understand it means baby. You know, that's just one little example. But when we justify telling an untruth and fail to say, well, that's lying. You know, you can't do that if you hope to have life in the family and in the society. You know, that's what He's saying. You got to be ready to die to yourself. Let God be God. And you be His son or daughter, and I be His son or daughter. And then we're putting everything that way. And then we do things under His inspiration and with His help. And with His guidance, we reach perfection. But when we try to take over His job, false gods, then we have difficulties. What an awesome celebration. I mean, I've been to Mass on Thursday after Ash Wednesday all the time, you know, and I'm right over my head all the time. But I think that's what He's saying to me today. Pay attention that all things begin with His inspiration, continue with His help, and it'll reach perfection. But if you try to be God instead of dying, as Jesus says, you got to die to yourself to have His life. Maybe just to make that prayer the big thought in your day today. May everything I do begin with His inspiration, continue with His help, and reach perfection under His guidance. The Lord be with you.